There's a new twist in the death of a South Carolina pastor's wife as the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office are now joining the investigation. 30-year-old Mica Miller died by an apparent suicide back in April. But after a local investigation was conducted, the feds will now be assisting in the probe. Here are some surveillance photos from Mica's last day alive. Take a look. She appears to purchase a firearm from a nearby pawn shop before police say she killed herself. Now, Pastor John Paul Miller released a statement via his attorney denouncing any wrongdoing, saying, quote, baseless claims should stop immediately. John Paul Miller has not been charged relating to this case, so we want to be very clear with that. Our question, though, this morning is, could this apparent suicide become a criminal case? I have three great guests on the program to talk about it with me. Let me bring them in now. In the studio, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Noah Pines. Standing by remotely, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Franz Borchardt, and entertainment reporter Kinsey Schofield. Great to see you all. This case is so heartbreaking and also somewhat mysterious. Noah, would you start us off on the conversation, please? Your thoughts on whether this could turn into a criminal matter?
Well, we've seen a couple suicide cases where people have gotten charged, but typically those people encourage the other person to commit suicide. I think that was a case that was covered here on Court TV maybe last year or the year before. It was a girl with a young, I think it was a high school student.
Right, right.
But, without some sort of encouragement, just if he's a horrible husband and posted naked pictures of her online and, psychologically abused her, for them to then say, well, she killed herself because of that, would be very difficult, if not impossible, to do criminally. You'd need some sort of encouragement to even get there.
Sure, I appreciate it, Noah. Franz Borchardt, to you next, please. What would you like to add to that, knowing this marriage was almost over? We know that Mica Miller had just served the pastor with divorce papers just days before this event. Your thoughts, please.
So to have a crime, at a bare minimum, lowest standard in the criminal justice system, you have to have probable cause that more likely than not a crime occurred. And without evidence that a crime occurred, what we're left with is someone who sounded like she wanted to take her own life. And that nugget about the fact that her marriage was ending was certainly something that would give her a motive to do it. Tragic, unnecessary, horrible way to end a life when you take your own life. That being said, I am going to be open to hearing what theory a crime happened and whether or not there's sufficient evidence at the lowest bar, Julie, at the lowest bar, more likely than not, that probable cause exists. I'm open to hearing about it. I just haven't seen it yet.
Sure. And Franz, appreciate that point. As we know, John Paul Miller not charged here, completely innocent, cloaked in the presumption of innocence, no charges at all, and he may never face any charges. We just know this investigation has become broader. Now that the federal government is involved, it's a little bit different. Kinsey Schofield, this is where I want to bring you in, please. Do you think that the public outcry about this may have had something to do with the investigation continuing to grow larger and have more assistance?
Great question. I think it's the public outcry and Miller's family. They just recently released these text messages from JP at the top of the Daily Mail this morning, where Mica is seeking refuge at a friend's house, and JP is sending text messages threatening those people, saying he's armed. The family really wants justice for their daughter, and they are speaking out through attorneys that say, we want to see her cellular telephone. We want to talk about the scratches on her body that we have photographs of. And they're really concerned because, Mica told her father she was buying that gun for self-defense. And Mica had a hair appointment in the next few days. And she was talking to friends about planning a life beyond this chaos.
Right, Kinsey. Yeah, it just seemed to come somewhat out of nowhere. It didn't, seem to make a whole lot of sense, which I think was why everybody had pause initially questioning, was it a suicide? And yet the evidence is pointing to that, and that's what the sheriff's investigation in Robeson County has determined at this point. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the moments before and after Mica's death. I've got a Facebook video posted by her prior to her death, and also we've got her husband, Pastor John Paul Miller's statement to his church after he learned of her passing. Let's watch.
I just wanted to give you a dare today. I dare you to do something either good for yourself or someone else, because like the second greatest command, love your neighbor as yourself, and it makes the enemy so mad.
I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away. And yeah, it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina. And we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come, but just keep our family in your prayers.
Our next question, what do the Miller's words reveal? Back to our power panel. Kinsey Schofield, I'd love to start with you on this one, please. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mica was definitely struggling with something and was trying to communicate it through a lot of her social media posts. There's also video of her talking through how people can leave abusive situations. And I think one of the reasons people are so touched by this is because she seems so beautiful, full of life and positive. And, it is just devastating because her husband stood on a pulpit and said such horrible things about her, even in that video we saw. Why are you talking about her mental health right now? Why are you in that position to do that? So I'm very frustrated by this case. I feel so horrible for this family.
Right. Preach, Kinsey. I love everything you said there. Preach. Franz Borghardt, to you next. Your thoughts on what you took away watching those two clips from the Millers? And I think we've got you muted, Franz. You want to double check, make sure your mic's. Okay, let me go to Noah while you check on that. Go ahead, Noah.
I know exactly what Franz was going to say.
Yeah.
Franz was going to say that the pastor he's pretty narcissistic, right? Mm-hmm. Just like Kinsey said, he's sitting there talking really about, his wife is passed, and he's like, well, she had mental health problems. It's just not the proper thing to say for anybody, especially somebody who's a pastor whose job, is probably to talk people through grief. One of the things I can say about, I'm not a doctor, obviously. I've had 2 clients who have committed suicide. One before they were going to prison, and then one the day after I told him his case was being dismissed.
No kidding.
And from
after
talking,
a dismissal.
Correct. And from talking to other people about clients, when people who do commit suicide, you can never figure out what's going on in their head. It's not the best day of their life or the worst day of their life. There's no, set test. And I'm sure if you had a mental health professional, they would tell you the same thing. It's just almost impossible to figure out what's causing somebody to do that.
That's a great point. Right, because if we were able to pick up on the signs, it would never happen, right? It's something that it's done very covertly, and anybody who's lost a loved one to suicide knows just how painful it is, because you beat yourself up thinking, should I have recognized this or that, or what if I said this differently? And mental health professionals will tell you the person was going to do what they were going to do, regardless of what you. Right. And Franz, I think we've got your mic all squared away. Final thoughts. Take us home, if you would, kindly.
So this pastor is not doing anything to help himself. Even if he were innocent as the day is long, his statements before this incident just it doesn't help. Right? It's not what we want from pastors. The other takeaway is this, and I think it's been alluded to and said. People don't wear their mental health issues in a visible way always. Sometimes people who seem beautiful, sweet, like they have the entire world together, they don't. And so I appreciate that the family wants an investigation. They are going to get that. I don't know that they're going to be satisfied no matter what happens. And that's understandable, right? So I'll be praying for them. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm also hoping that this pastor becomes a little bit more gentler and kinder and hopefully, you know, stops talking about people's mental health in front of large groups of people.
Right, as that could be detrimental. An excellent point to end on. I want to thank you all for this great conversation. We're going to continue watching this one.